What's your 5 to 9 after your 9 to 5? Ooh, that's a good question. Assuming that the typical workday is 9 to 5, I know that many have alternate schedules. I'm curious what your 5 to 9 routine is that helps you be social, if you want, and generally enjoy life. I close work tabs and open up personal tabs. Hell yeah, we know where you're going. It's one of the 3 possible routines depending on how much energy I have. Option 1, gym followed by shitposting on the internet or disappointment. Option 2, video games for like an hour followed by posting on the internet or disappointment. Option 3, a nap followed by disappointment upon waking up. I'm gonna go with all of them. Oh wait, no, I don't go to the gym though. Yeah, I just kinda play Beat Saber and do push-ups. But not nearly as many push-ups as you might be assuming in your head. Like 3? Being alone with my thoughts. That sounds so fun. I do that a lot myself. Music production. I create a bunch of songs in my head all the time, but haven't had the chance to actually make them until now. I want to be in my later years in life knowing I tried everything I ever wanted to. I have friends who are skilled at it, and it's a challenge talking to them about it, knowing I'm in a place of inexperience. I spend my 9 to 5 in a place where I know what I'm doing. So it's a nice change of space. That's not what it says. Community theater. What's in there? A lot of different people who are either passionate about storytelling or being a part of something. I've had a lot of fun hanging around people who also like singing, making weird voices, being weird, and accepting. Oh yeah, I worked with a guy who did a lot of community theater work, or at the very least, a lot of, well, how would you say, improv work? Still very community-based, very, very fun. I don't ever have the balls to do that. I never will. It just freaks me out. What are some things that socially awkward people do? I want to know the things that make people socially awkward or weird. Okay, here we go. Socially awkward person here. I have difficulty making eye contact, can't make small talk for shit. I always end up making some stupid remark or speaking so quietly they can't hear me. Struggle to understand other people for one reason or for some reason when anxious. Zoned out frequently and end up staring vacantly into space. I'm overly apologetic, can't make decisions on the spot, so a waiter approaching me when I'm not ready is bound to be an awkward interaction. I, at the very least, have always had difficulty making eye contact. I look everywhere. If I show up to a party and everyone's mingling, it is not possible to enter a conversation, so I just wander around the periphery for a few minutes and then give up and leave. I'll make plans to go to a cafe or the store or the gym. I'll get there and see a crowd and give up and leave. I've been there, man. I've absolutely been there. I had a roommate that for whatever reason could never tell when a conversation was over. I'd say something like, cool, sounds good, and turn to head into my bedroom, and he'd follow me to keep the conversation going. I'd go so far as to be standing in my bedroom doorway, slowly closing the door, and he'd just keep going. I think I developed a sixth sense for it while I was living with him, and now I always notice it when someone misses a conversation cue. Oh, I've never done that, but, you know, I'm able to tell when a conversation is done. Even if I'm not the one that ended it, I feel like it's a little easy, at least for me. Sitting alone watching TV and eating party snacks while everyone else is talking with each other at a party. I can't do small talk. I have no clue what to do at parties except stand in the corner until I leave. I find them painful and avoid at all costs. Yeah, that's why a lot of people do drink at parties, you know? Not that you ever should feel like you can't have fun without drinking, because that's not true. But for someone like me who never really knows what to say, drinking does help open me up a little bit in big social settings like that, to the point where I'm actually able to talk about anything at length. It goes from, hey, how's the weather? What do you do? To, what do you do in earnest? And then actually being able to relate to that and ask them questions and keep people engaged. Very, very different. A socially awkward behavior is to fail to recognize that people are not interested in the thing you're talking about. If you find yourself in a conversation where you're the only one sharing and asking questions, it might mean that the other person isn't interested, and you are putting them in the awkward situation of forcing them to be polite. If you choose to share a detail about something important to you, for example that you enjoy painting, note if the person you're engaging with asks you follow-up questions or shares their own personal anecdote in response. Those are signs that they're interested in engaging conversation about the topic. If instead they say, oh cool, good for you. Good for you. Well, that would be kind of weird. That immediately would tell me that, oh, okay, they're being supportive, but probably aren't hoping that you will now talk to them about your painting every time you see them. I get it. Yeah, absolutely. This is why I don't talk at length at all, because I know no one gives a flying f*** about what I have to say. Are phone calls to friends merely to chat without any agenda still a thing? I mean, I don't know. I don't think phone calls, no. That's why Skype and Discord and all the other online chat programs kind of changed the paradigm, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right word here, but they changed everything. They really did. None of my friends call me anymore. I used to spend an hour talking with my friends about 5 years ago. Now, if I get a call, it's usually because they need a favor. It's just texting now. Is this the case for a lot of people? I mean, again, I'm from a generation where, you know, we started making friends through Skype, and then eventually Discord. Something changed in my world. Phone calls are almost anxiety-provoking to me now. I'm 70. Talked on the phone about nothing all the time for 50 years. But now if I get a call from a friend, relative, or my own children, my first thought is, oh god, what happened? Seriously, it's strange. I still want to know if, say, you saw a new bird at the feeder or your what bloomed? But that's a text with a photo, not a phone call. Weird and not good, I think, but I do it too. That's so interesting. My grandma, who's in her 70s, always calls me to chat about random stuff like what she cooked today, or how are her plants doing, or the weather. My friends never would call about that sort of thing, all right? I don't know how old everybody else is. I would prefer this type of call, but the phone calls I get are from others who want to complain about other people or situations. This is mostly my blood relatives. It's a real downer, besides annoying and anxiety-producing. I either have to muster the energy and courage to end the call quickly or just ignore it. If this is a real need-a-friend situation, my friends send a text to check in first and give a synopsis. I have one friend who's out of state now, and she's the last to actually want to chit-chat about random. People are socially drained nowadays. It's definitely a bigger issue. My neighbor's wife has cancer. So my neighbor is older and so is his wife. They could be grandparents, or my grandparents rather, and I'm 23. And apparently the cancer treatment is getting worse instead of better. She's in the hospital and he visits her and comes back home. Today I heard him cry in the corridor. I know that there isn't anything I can say necessarily that helps, but I wish to be able to say something to not seem apathetic. Is there anything I can say? Is there any way I can help? When my dad was sick with cancer, neighbors dropped off food. That was a really big help for my mom. I'd say start with that. This can be abstractified to solve problems and save time for grieving people. Unexpected sweets are awesome, as well as food, if you know their dietary preferences. Gift cards as well. You can offer to drive him to the hospital and pick him up, bring him food, do the shopping, take care of the garden, etc. Anything that helps. Maybe just sit and let him talk. Sometimes someone just needs to let it all out. Personally, I wouldn't want to give the appearance of pitying your neighbor. Wanting to help is a nice sentiment, but very difficult to do without adding to the mental stress of going through something difficult. If you see them normally during the day, say hi and listen. Have a nice chat. Stuff like that. Just reminding him that there are friendly people nearby who respect his space. That can go a long way. Tip: if someone compliments you, don't argue with them. You may have low self-esteem, you may want to appear humble, but if someone tells you you have a nice hat, don't say no. They just want to compliment you. Just say thanks. If you really want to appear humble, say something like, you think so? Thanks. I mean, I only really argue with super close friends. I'm like, nah, you're lying. I'll kick you in the nuts. But if someone comments like, I like your tattoo, I like your shirt, I like your hat, or whatever, I just go, oh, thank you. You know, it feels like that's pretty normal to me, whether or not I agree. You guys are getting compliments? No, just condiments. If you're nice, they'll give you an extra packet of ketchup. I do actually get a lot, a significant amount. I just never reply with thank you. I generally reply with, oh my god, shut up, you're lying. I think I need to start accepting compliments and saying thank you. Like, literally, the girl gave me a compliment and I told her to shut up. No, I'm not. And she gave me another one. I'm like, OMG. You're even so humble. I love that. Oh, I see. I'm an idiot. Is that actually how you reply? I thought you were kidding. So true. And as a girl, I found the best way to respond to specific compliments about hair, clothes, makeup, or accessories is to say how you did it or where you got it. Specifically if the compliment's coming from another girl. Example: I love your dress. It looks so good on you. Oh my god, thanks. It's from, your hair looks great today. Thank you. I tried out these new heatless curls. I can send you the tutorial I used if you want. What are subtle signs someone is not confident? I've struggled with confidence for a long time, and I've at times been surprised by people pointing out little behaviors reflecting that. So I'm wondering, what are some signs that a person isn't confident? Overcompensating for their insecurities. I really regret doing this when I was younger because it's actually really annoying to the people around you. I used to put myself down before other people could so that it wouldn't hurt as much if someone did say something about me. Oh my god, I did that too. I told myself I was being brutally honest with myself, but out loud. If I could say how ugly I was in front of other people, they surely couldn't hurt me. But it has these problems. It didn't work. If they insult you or even agree, it's still devastating. Absolutely. It's not really true. It's a subjective statement, and the truth is some minority of people I find hot think I'm hot. There you go. It's unhealthy. It only weakened me and fixated me on my flaw. Even if something is janky, only give the power and energy you need to care for it. Don't let it define who you are. I eventually learned this was a horrible strategy, and now I recognize and accept my flaws as they are. But I will not make it a tragedy. If it comes up in conversation, I can make an upbeat joke about it, but I will not shame myself anymore. I learned that I needed to be a friend to myself and stop saying cruel things that I could never say to another friend. You have to act first before you can believe. So I found lots of minor opportunities to silently compliment myself for any positive thing. I don't know what to do around people who do that, because me not offering reassurance is probably taken as he thinks everything I just said about myself is true, when really I'm just tired and don't want to entertain it. Complete surrender, total resignation. Too many failures, betrayals, complete I cannot change anything victim mode. Which is total bullshit, I know, because I for one have a quite intelligent brain and know exactly where that leads to. Downward spiral. More time passes with more stuff undone, more chances squandered. But when you fail and have been failed too often in life, you simply won't try the new stuff on offer. Confidence comes from trying and succeeding repeatedly. Two opposite behavioral ends are big giveaways. Constant bragging and competing. Inability to see others succeed and defensiveness. This unintentionally announces insecurity, and insecurity lives where confidence does not. Constant apologizing. Zero boundaries, boundary enforcement, compliment hunting. This one's more obvious, but confidence is required to stand in your statements, needs, beliefs, and opinions under both casual scrutiny and hard pushback. Also, fear of change or challenges, which isn't a singular behavior, but instead a series of decisions and reactions. Confidence is required to change your mind or your habits. It's also needed just to take on new challenges without being, well, traumatized by them. Why do people say don't become friends with coworkers? I don't understand this. It's already difficult enough to make friends as an adult. The workplace seems like the easiest way to make friends as you spend so much time there. When you go to work every day and you're around these people all the time, it's natural to build relationships. Having friends at work also makes the job more enjoyable, and it makes the day go by quicker. I can understand not being friends with your boss due to the power imbalance, but I don't see anything wrong with befriending other coworkers. I've heard this, but I don't care. As we get older, it's harder to socialize because of other responsibilities like family, etc. I tend to keep coworkers in a few categories. Actual friends, these are few and the circle is tight. These are people I text and talk to outside of work hours, share personal details with, and if possible, actually hang out with outside of work. These are people I've kept in touch with after one or both of us have left the company. Work friends. These are people who I'll be close to while working together, but once one of us leaves, we'll lose touch. We might share surface level details about our personal lives, but nothing really deep. Absolutely nothing wrong with that person, but for whatever reason, it doesn't progress much more than that. Coworkers. These are people who I don't talk to unless I happen to run into them. It's mostly just small talk about the weather and work, nothing personal, and then we go about our day separately. Also, I don't actively, consciously try to lump people into these categories. And yeah, over time, things change, and the person who was a work friend might turn into an actual one, and vice versa. If you become actual friends with a coworker, you should treasure it, because as you get older, it becomes harder to make new ones. I've never heard this. However, I try to stay as neutral with coworkers as possible. If you go either direction, you run the risk of making things bad at work because friendships can and do go wrong. I've had people force friendships on me at work, and it did not make a bad job better. This is just something that depends on the person. On top of that, we didn't stay friends after I left the job, which to me means you weren't really a friend to begin with. And then you end up in the same it's difficult to make friends as an adult space as before. In what drama do you live in where friendships go more wrong than just not being friends anymore and not talking? What has to happen between you for a plain friendship to go that far south? People can turn on you maliciously. Best friends sharing personal stuff one day, enemies using the info you shared against you the next. Also, making shit up about you. Not pleasant to be stuck at a workplace like that, okay? Because they have the ability to use the information you share against you. In the end, they are not allies, but competitors. Of course, it's hard and hard. See, I think that's a big problem right there in and of itself, is that so many workplaces are competition-based. I don't want to work at a place that's like that. That sounds like a fucking nightmare and terrible at all. It's always you versus me. No one ever gets to work together. Of course, it's hard and harmful. More so because you spend so much time there, but anything you say or do can and will be used against you. My coworker asks if I'd like something from the coffee shop every day, and I say no every day. So they always ask me if I'd like something, and I politely decline. But this morning, one of them kind of scrunched her face like a confused what the hell and left. I don't know what I did, but am I not supposed to say no? I bring my own tea. I don't like the idea of someone using their own money to get me something. I feel like I have to owe you something in return. I understand you were doing it out of the kindness of your heart, but in all honesty, I don't know you well enough to feel comfortable with you doing that. I'm boycotting Starbucks, but there's a coffee bean one more block down. I would more likely say yes to that. Anyways, crazy enough that it was my work crush that did this, and now I'm spiraling, but it's okay. I'm okay. I am not okay. I don't know what you did, but I know you fumbled the bag with your crush. If you have a crush on them, why did you say, I brought my tea? Or why didn't you say, excuse me, I brought my tea, but I'll walk with you? Yeah, at work, folks join each other for just the walk to the coffee shop without getting anything themselves all the time. If you want an excuse, just say it's a needed break and you want to stretch your legs anyway. I don't really really have any advice for you, but it reminds me of one coworker I had who had to say, "That smells so good," every single goddamn day I got my lunch out. It was one of the most annoying experiences of my life. Should have killed him. Nah, that man was bugging for a piece for real. Absolutely. Ha! I finally snapped and asked her, "Are you hungry? Do you need me to bring in food for you?" And then politely laughed it off. Oh, her, okay. Yeah, don't do it. She quit doing it after that. Don't kill her. Don't do it. If it was the guy, I don't know. I'm really tired. I can't really make a joke. I've been doing this all day. A man in gym tried to show dominance on me. So I, 21, have been going to this gym for about a year and a half, and people are mostly the same here. One guy, late 20s or early 30s, who I often see in the gym, tried to show dominance on me. I'll be laying on the bench press, was about to lift the bar, and this person standing next to the bench, and this person stands next to the... Wow, okay. And puts his hand on the bar. I tap on his hand and told him, "Please take your hand off, I need to lift it up." He looked at me and then looked away and did not lift his hand. The hell? Told him again, and he started to stare at me and did not took his hand up. God, okay. For a continuous 5 to 10 seconds, and I told him again to take off your hand. Then he take off his head and went away, and my assessment from the situation that he was trying to assess that whether I will show resistance or not so he can abuse me in the future. I wanted to ask what I can do in this situation. Next time this happens, just go straight to the gym staff and report him. Nothing asserts dominance like getting yourself banned from the gym. Yeah, it's a gym. Everyone's paying to be there. I don't care what anybody says. "Oh, you tattled on me?" Yeah, get the hell out of here, douchebag. Guy needs to be banned. There absolutely should not be someone screwing around with the bar while people are trying to bench 100 kilo above their neck. This person's a walking nightmare. This isn't about dominance. This is about stupidity. They demonstrated that when it comes to stupidity, they are the king, pope, and god. I just socialized at a party I went to by myself, knowing no one, for 8 hours. What the hell? How did I pull that off? It's like my social anxiety disappeared randomly. I talked to so many people, had so many laughs. I never thought in a million years that I'd be able to manage that. I had a really good time. Can someone tell me how to turn on this superpower all the time? One of the most helpful things for me was remembering times like this, so next time I feel uncomfortable socially, I can remind myself, remember that one time? I did great, and it all felt natural. Maybe it's not just me, and more about finding people I can get along with like that. That bit of confidence has definitely helped me from getting too in my head, and overall helps with socializing with anyone. Nice job. I suffer from social anxiety, and my take is this. Because you knew nobody, you could step out of your shell and be anybody. There was no pressure of you making a fool out of yourself and it following you for the rest of your life, because you might never see any of these people again. Does that make sense? That does. I can see that. What's a social skill you really believe works, but is unpopular? Unpopular can be subjective, so whatever that is unpopular from your perspective works as well. Warmth. I think people perceive bringing warmth to others as being fake because people have trouble bringing themselves to an emotional state where they feel warm. However, knowing how to do this is very effective. I'm just missing words. I'm missing words tonight. So it's worth learning how to both feel and express warmth. Being a bit unorthodox. Not too much. We tend to subscribe to a bunch of social rules, but I think sometimes a pinch of nonconformity can make one stick out. For example, expressing a different opinion. Talking about the weird stuff that you think no one would be interested in. I don't think you have to talk about Taylor Swift or pop culture all the time. Sometimes you can talk about nerdy things and find an audience, huh? Exactly. I think there's being weird, which most people call interesting, and actually just being weird and making people feel uncomfortable. I was a quirky kid, and am now only realizing that I suppressed a lot of my interests growing up because kids and teenagers, to an extent, tend to value conformity. Now those same quirks can make me the center of attention at any social gathering. Stroking egos. Some might call it manipulative, but with some of the worst kinda of people, telling them they're teaching you something or acting as if you're in awe of their talent will get you on their good side instantly. I suppose. Interrupting. It's actually socially acceptable and an effective conversational tool, but hard to talk about online because it needs nuance and context, and the worst people abuse it. Oh yeah, for sure. If someone will not let you talk, punch them in the dick, no matter who it is. I learned this going to industry trade shows where you walk around and talk to vendors and suppliers at their booths. I would stand there waiting politely for my turn to talk to them while everyone else either talked forever or missed out, while more forward people cut in to say hi and got their turns. I had to learn to interrupt politely with timing to get my attention. Not only, I I see what type of interrupting you're talking about. I gotcha. Not only was it effective, but honestly, it is expected. The vendor was happy to talk, and the other person was happy to move on to the next target or oblivious and needed a nudge. A younger example. You're walking down the school hallway and you see your friend, but their back is to you and they're talking to another. It's generally okay to poke your head in and say hi and quickly catch up before moving on. Their conversation can continue as before, and you reinforced your friendship. Outside of some greater drama, nobody in this situation is aggrieved. Or imagine a table at a bar with your peers and one person is dominating the conversation. They're likely waiting for someone to interrupt and counterpoint or whatever because that's how it is at their family table. It's how they grew up and consider, or what they consider, normal, and even appreciate it, like fencing or jousting. I mean, I personally don't like talking to people who see conversations as a battle, but you know, pretty privilege is a thing if you aren't socially awkward. I'm conventionally handsome, and I've been told this many times. How don't you have a girlfriend yet? Someone as handsome as you? Well, for the entirety of my life up until recently, I've been super socially awkward. I admit that my good looks have been able to lend me a handful of experiences with women despite this, but I've rarely been able to pull some on my own. So looks can help, but I guarantee you the most socially adept person can be kinda ugly and pull more than I can ever dream of, at least for now. This is 100% true. I used to work in fashion, and I know this guy who's a model but socially awkward, even though he's absolutely lovable once you get to know him. Always initially attracted, a lot of attention, but people really never click with him. I also know a guy in the same circle who's the opposite. Pretty average, to put it nicely, in looks, but very socially adept. He dated a lot of the models we worked with. Why do you think so many guys that look like me are funny? Why do you think that is? It's really disheartening when your attractiveness sets expectations for people. So when you go to socialize with them, they're let down by your personality. Happens way too much. Letting down someone by personality just makes me even more miserable. It means I must really suck to be around. Are people raised on love more likely to be healthier individuals than people raised on survival? Are they more likely to succeed in life and in friendship? I think it really depends. Someone raised on love might be better off emotionally and be better at communicating, but someone raised on survival might be more disciplined and better at improvising. But you will need all of these skills to be healthy. So it's mostly just a matter of supplementing the skills you have failed to gain in childhood, but in adulthood. A loving upbringing is a privilege. Sometimes the raised with love and safety is given an opportunity to explore life and succeed. They often are afforded more chances to safely discover and pursue their interests and passions, and have access to a safety net more easily and unencumbered routes to success, not having to focus on survival. Of course, there are benefits to learning how to function in a dangerous world and gaining the capacity to wend one's way through. It's a more narrow, specific path. One raised on survival focuses on just that. Just brought up in a traumatic or toxic environment likely have very good instincts, but out of necessity. Then we can factor in Gabor Mate's theory about childhood abuse and trauma and effect on physical well-being and lifelong illness and mental health. Nobody gets out alive in the world, and we all suffer and have our own traumas and setbacks, but those with a loving, safe start have a leg up. I was raised by unloving parents. It affected all of my relationships. I'm just now learning my upbringing affects the way in which I behave. Now my relationships are more healthy, so it's not impossible to love yourself and love others. I was raised to survive, so I think chaotic events tend to not faze me as much. I was raised on love with a parent who went out of her way to give myself and my sister everything we wanted. But I sit here at 53 completely unsocialized, spending 90% of my time on my own with literally no friends, and only ever having had one relationship that lasted a month nearly 30 years ago. A former friend of mine who was slightly younger than I am was very much the epitome of being raised on survival because he was once attacked by his brother and stepfather and kicked out of the house, or out of the house he grew up in, is currently living in a house he owns and is married with 2 kids. Everyone is different. There are no rules, if you will. I'm 25 and feel like my social skills are that of a 12-year-old. Seems like a lot of people feel like their social skills are very, very poor. I have extremely debilitating social anxiety. When in social situations with new people or acquaintances, I go into freeze mode and forgot everything I've ever known or had an opinion on. I've struggled with making and keeping friends my entire life. I thought I'd grow out of it, but never did. I don't understand social cues, how to respond or keep a conversation going. My anxiety has prevented me from doing/accomplishing so many things in my life, and it's not to the point where, or now to the point where it is anyway, now affecting me physically, and I've had to leave my job. I've completely isolated myself. The only person I'm 100% comfortable with is my partner, but I can't ask him to isolate himself in his room all day. It's at a point where it's not fair to him, but he's my best friend and we've been together 5 years. It really bothers him that I can barely keep a relationship with his family, and I really want to get over my fear of being vulnerable or being perceived. Are there classes you can take for this kind of thing? Would anyone on here be willing to help me out, or just some tips that have helped helped you with bad anxiety? I mean, I don't know. I don't know about classes, but therapists are worth their weight in gold, in my honest opinion. Most others don't have very good social skills either. They've just memorized how to act in certain common situations and fake the rest. So don't knock yourself for not being smooth, and don't think everyone's judging you when you mess up, because most of us aren't judging you and aren't that smooth ourselves. And screw the ones who are. Does anyone feel like they have a slow brain which makes social situations and public speaking more difficult? I'm 26, fairly introverted with some social anxiety. I've been thinking lately about why I feel socially awkward and therefore nervous a lot of the time when socializing. In many cases, it simply feels like if I knew what to say, I would not feel nervous or awkward, because my brain doesn't come up with things to say. Either because I have a poor working memory or it's simply too slow and not able to think of things on the spot. I feel stuck. It often feels like people around me are able to fluidly share their experience, thoughts, and feelings, whereas I end up saying things that sound weird or stumbling on my words because I couldn't think of them or organize my thoughts quickly enough. For example, situations like when telling a story or a joke, I end up sounding really clunky because I can't remember the order or pace of how things should have been said, or the punchline comes in my head before all the build-up so it loses its impact. My inability to organize my thoughts on the spot has particularly made public speaking and presentations extremely stressful and panic-inducing at work or in casual social situations, as I don't have the confidence that my brain will come up with stuff to say. I feel like I have to over-prepare and rely heavily on reading off slides. Just wanted to know if anyone else out there related to this experience, or if anyone had any tips for how to work on this. I've already made one step forward, which is to start attending Toastmasters. What is Toastmasters? That sounds interesting. I feel like this exactly. I've broken down in tears because I feel that when I try to be social, I have nothing to say. It's like I need more time to process, reflect, and only then do I have an opinion or response. Which, you know, when you say it like that, it doesn't sound so bad. But obviously, this just doesn't work when you're trying to talk to someone in the moment. I don't have a solution, but you're not alone, which I hope brings you some sort of comfort. It did for me, so thank you. I also have wondered whether it's more of a working memory / executive functioning issue, as I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, inattentive type. Advice: practice broadening what you allow yourself to say. When speaking, try to make it a habit to share anything, even if it seems boring or whatever. I think the problem here for a lot of people is less about having things to say and more about, number one, thinking that what you talk about has to be super interesting to be worth it, or number two, not realizing the experiences that are shareable. If someone asks what you did this weekend, for example, I didn't do anything. I had a long week, so I was pretty much recharging all weekend. I made waffles. Notice this is much different than, oh, not that much, just hung out at home. But we assume that we can't talk about stuff like what we ate, or having a long work week, or that we can't make it interesting. It's all about the attitude that you say things with. If you get a little bit more honest with yourself, you'll realize that you do have things to talk about, and they can be made interesting. I say be honest with yourself, because I feel like this ultimately roots down to trying to be something in a conversation. I think it's easier when it's strangers you never think you'll see again. Regardless, good job. The power of, sorry, what were you saying? Have you guys ever had a moment where you were talking, but then you got talked over, or the person you were talking to got distracted and you just trailed off? Sucked, right? Remember when this happened and someone said, sorry, you were saying, and you got to finish what you were going to say? Felt great, didn't it? They probably seemed like an angel. Be that for other people. The amount of joy and goodwill you can bring people with a simple, sorry, what were you saying, will make you much more likable and valued as a person. That's the first step to being more sociable. Takes no energy. See someone trailing off in a group? Let them know they're being heard. Doesn't take an incredible amount of social skill or ability to read the room, but it does go a long way. That has been a huge life hack. As the person who struggles with interrupting or talking over others sometimes, it happens when I get too excited or know I'll forget it if I don't speak now. In my case, it's never malicious. I'm just neurodivergent, but I still know it's a bad habit that people usually don't appreciate. Apologizing and giving back their turn to speak at least shows you're trying. If you're like me and aren't trying to be a dick when you interrupt someone, try to remember what they were saying, remind them, and apologize for cutting them off. I've saved a lot of conversations like this, which had positive ripple effects. ETA. People can be more forgiving than you think if you own up to your mistakes and visibly try to do better. This applies to more than just this topic. I do this a lot naturally because I know exactly how it feels to be ignored in a group setting, so I make sure other people don't feel that way. Same. I stopped texting first to my best friend. I haven't heard from him since. We've been friends since we were little kids. I noticed I was the one to always initiate the hangouts. He always agreed, but I remember having a gut feeling that I would never hear from him again if I stopped texting first. And now it's been a month. This could be me on the other end. This is how I've lost so many people I love. I often feel like I'm a burden or don't feel like I have anything worth saying, and then I don't text first. I keep going back and looking at the last text over and over and over again, and the longer the time stretches between now and that text, the more guilt and shame I feel over not responding. At the same time, letting the lack of communication communication from the other side confirm all my worst fears about that relationship and myself. Don't feel any guilt or shame. If they are your friend, I'm sure they'll be happy to hear from you, whether it's weeks, months, or years. But you'll never know for sure unless you text them. Just wait. Sometimes not forcing hangouts is good for a friendship. It should be a fun, spontaneous thing rather than an obligatory hangout every X days to mark it off the checklist. I don't think that's what he was doing, though. I don't think it was an obligatory hangout every X days. It's just, as someone who's usually the one to message first, like almost exclusively, yeah, I don't know. It is a two-way street, for sure. And I don't know, it sucks. It does. But it has nothing to do with fucking obligation. Comments here are harsh. I totally understand that if he really is your best friend, you'd expect him to try and socialize with you too, because that's what people do who care for each other. I don't think you did something wrong, but now maybe the time has come for you to ask, hey man, it feels like I'm always the one reaching out to you. Is everything cool between us? Something like that maybe. You could even be more truthful and say that you feel like you're the only one trying to keep it going. Wish you luck either way, man.